you're also known as LMNK, and you have some new music that's coming out, that's already came out. So I want to chat with you about your music journey and kind of all the details and inspiration behind that. So, to start, maybe like, how did you get your start in music?
I guess I've kind of always been around music. Like my mom would play music in the kitchen growing up, and my sister loved to sing. Both of them do, and so I've always been kind of around it, influenced by that. And then I kind of would just sing and stuff. And I remember my older sister, I'd catch her like around the corner, like listening or whatever. And when I'd catch her, I'd be all embarrassed. But then she'd just encourage me, like, no, it sounded good. It's good. And she was genuine about it. And so that kind of sparked an interest in me. And then I think as far as like musical inspirations go, I think what really started it for me and what really set it off as kind of like something that I might like to do, got me really interested, was Matthew West. When I was a kid, he had an album called History, and on there was a song, Next Thing You Know. And that song, I think, was one of the first songs that I really got me into music. And so even now, inspirations for me, obviously my taste in music has evolved and it's changed, and it's more of the guys like Forrest Frank and Peabody, who I don't know if people listening will know who that is, but guys more like that, where it's more of a poppy rap kind of vibe. And I told myself, like, I want to always keep my lyrics Christian, because for me, I don't know, like, if there's a song that I'm singing that's not about God, then why am I singing it? That's kind of always been a thought in my head. And so then I just kind of got into writing my own stuff and got it recorded, started doing some shows here and there, and we're just slowly, kind of getting our feet wet still and getting more and more into it, getting better, evolving and stuff like that. So,
and mentioning shows and recording, I'm sure that must be like a dream come true when you got to do that. You got to probably hear it for the first time or go on stage for the first time. But, is there maybe one specific moment that really stands out to you as like your first fondest, biggest memory?
Well, I remember the first time recording myself and then hearing it back. I didn't think it was me, because your voice never sounds like, when you hear your voice on a recording, it doesn't sound like how you hear it as you're talking or as you're singing. And so to me, that was very weird. It's like, oh, that's what I sound like to other people? Okay. It's not what I thought. So there's that memory. But I think as far as performing goes, I think two summers ago, I was at Steinbach's Summer in the City, part of their worship in the city stuff. And there, I think that was kind of the first time where it was like, it was on the main stage. And so that was obviously the biggest stage that I had been on. Not that there was a huge audience, but just knowing that like people walking by can hear this and everything. And it was like, it was also the first time for a performance where I had spent a decent amount of time in prayer beforehand and just giving it to God and saying, like, do with this what you will. And that was like the first performance where I felt free to like move around, because before I was very stiff and staying in one spot. And at that point I was like free to move around. I didn't really care. And it just felt really rewarding. It felt, but also very spirit-led, because I felt like this isn't normally who I am on stage. So like, where is this coming from? And that was really encouraging.
And how important, I mean, you said that all your lyrics, you want them to be Christian, and then kind of taking that experience of being spirit-led on stage, and you're just like, wait, this isn't me. So like, obviously this is God working through you. Like, right. How important is that to your performance, and also like you said, that was the first time that you really like prayed a lot before a performance. So how do you kind of, I guess, have your faith kind of play into even just your preparation to go up on stage?
Right. I think it has to be the most important thing. Like I have to remind myself that that's why I'm doing it. Like sure, maybe a venue gives you some money for performing, but for me, I would be more so, how do I say this? For me, it's more important that like somebody hears the gospel than if I get paid for it, right? And so for me, that's important, because if God's not in it, then I don't want it. And I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately, where it's like, I'm on a worship team at my church too, and there's some days where I'm on stage and I just don't feel like being there. I don't feel like, whatever you could say, like you don't feel worthy to be singing those words or whatever. And there's definitely days like that with my music too, where it's like, oh, I have a performance, I don't really want to do this, I don't feel into it or whatever. And I just have to remind myself, like, it's not about me, right? Like, it's not about me or how I feel, it's about God, and like just reminding myself why I'm doing this. It's for him, and getting his message out to the world, who someone, if one person hears it that hasn't heard it before, well, that's a win. And I might not ever know that, and that's kind of where I leave it in God's hands, right? Like, if he can use me in that way, like, I'm all for it. And so I think prepping that way is important, just to give it to him and remind myself, it doesn't matter how you're feeling, like somebody out there might need to hear this today, so you got to go out there and do it.
And just what an encouragement that can be to people that, like you said, you might never even get to hear the stories of the lives that have been touched by something you sing or something that is spoken. So that must be really cool. But maybe talk a little bit about the difference between singing like your songs versus being like on the worship team at church. Like,
right.
Kind of how are they different? How are they similar? I mean, obviously they both have the goal of, like you said, you want to share the gospel, you want to encourage people, but is there anything like that they differ or other
right.
similarities?
Well, I guess the biggest difference, because like you said, they have the same goal, right? But I think the biggest difference for me would be, in a church setting, I guess you kind of have certain songs that are more for corporate worship. And I don't think this, like, my songs for my performances would necessarily all be considered like meant for that. Some of them probably could, but I think for most part, I think that's the biggest difference, is like, could a congregation sing this Sunday morning, kind of thing. I think that's the difference, and I don't think necessarily all my songs are like that. That's also not necessarily my goal when I write them, but I think that would be probably the biggest difference. Meanwhile, the goal is still the same.
And when you're talking about like writing songs, do you have like a specific process that for you that you follow, of like, okay, maybe you're just driving around one day and you have this thought that comes to your head, a line, a melody, or whatever. Like, what does writing a song look like for you?
Well, writing isn't still not my strong suit. I'm still working on my writing skills, but lately what the process has been is, I'll have this idea in my head of something that I'd like to sing about. And then normally what happens is I'm inspired by another song that I'm hearing. And then it's like, oh, okay, I'd like it, to do something like that, like sound-wise. And then, I don't know, lately when I've been writing, the biggest thing it's weird. It's just all of a sudden, it just comes, and like it comes in a wave, and I'll just get on my notes app and I'll start writing. And then just trying to, like, I mostly just try to write it out, and then, because it's not my strong suit, like, I have a friend who helps me with my music, and he usually helps me, like, arrange it and everything like that. Mostly, though, I write to just get the thoughts out of my head, and then the rest comes. But yeah, it's mostly, it'll be inspired by other songs, and then obviously make it my own. And by when I say inspired by other songs, I'll mean like a couple songs that I have, you would never know by listening to it, but like the melody of the chorus originally in my head was inspired by a song that I heard or that I liked. But now if you listen to that song, you'd never know because it's been changed that much, right? But hearing that other song, it helped me to write it in that way, and it became what it is, right? Sort of thing. That's the best I can explain it.
And so you have an album out called Armageddon, and you have the deluxe version that's going to be coming out. Yes. So, for listeners of those songs, like what can they expect to hear? Like of the new stuff coming out? Maybe just of the new stuff, or if they haven't, maybe this is like introducing listeners to your music.
Oh,
so
okay,
how would
right.
you kind of describe it? That kind of.
Right. Okay. It's interesting. It's always hard to describe what it's like because I feel like it's a unique sound. I guess the best way I've found to explain it, I'd say if you're talking genre, like I don't necessarily want to say it's in the Christian genre, right? The lyrics are Christian, the music isn't. I like to always say it like that. But the music I'd say is pop, but there's some rap thrown into it for some of it. One of the songs is a reimagined version of an older song that I had, where basically we just took it and I was like, I want to do something different with this because I felt like when it was originally made, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I always thought it could be more. So we kind of took that and just kind of redid it. And I think it made it better. And then the actual, there is a song on the album called Armageddon. I think that's kind of like the power ballad of the album, so to speak. It's slow getting into it, but I think the feedback that I hear from others when they hear it is that it's very powerful. And I didn't write that song. My friend Josh wrote it, but he wrote it in a I guess he had written a bunch of songs and wasn't going to use them, so he was generous enough to let me take that. And I'll give him credit for that because it is a very powerful song. Kind of just talks about spiritual battle and how God is walking with you through that, and he's already won the battle. That's kind of the theme of the song. And as far as what makes the album deluxe, there's two new songs. Well, I guess they're not new songs, they're new versions. We kind of took two of the songs on there and we did kind of like a remix. Not a traditional remix, but it's more of like a chill version of those songs, and I think they turned out really well. And we also have the original song of that one I mentioned was that we took and we reimagined it. The original song is going to be on there as well. And so I kind of wanted to just put that out because I figured it was a good way to do that is just have a deluxe version. And the main reason I'm doing that is because I wanted to release it physically on CD, but I wanted to release it so that the CD has the new songs. And so if you want to hear the new songs, you get the CD sort of thing. It will eventually be available everywhere, right? But that's kind of the route I'm taking first. It'll be out on CD first and then everywhere later. Was kind of the idea with that.
And when can listeners expect to, like if they're looking for the CD, when can they get a copy of it?
I don't have an exact date, but
so stay tuned.
Yeah, it's within the next month or two, I would say it should be out. Just there's stuff I want to make sure I get everything right with the disc manufacturers, because I know with my very first EP there was it ended up there being spelling mistakes and some of the audio wasn't right, and I don't know what happened there, right? And so I'm just kind of making sure everything is in order and everything before I order CDs. So.
And so if somebody wants to just like stay up to date with details upcoming, when this is going to actually like when you have a specific date, where's the best place for them to get that information and maybe kind of follow along with your music journey?
Right. I would think social media is a good option. I think I'm everywhere at LMNK Band, so Instagram, Facebook, but also my website, lmnkband.com, which there actually might be a pre-order of that album up soon. And you can also sign up for the email list on there as well. So those would be the main ways to stay in touch. Yeah.
All right. Well, perfect. Well, thank you for joining us today
right.
and sharing about your music.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me.
There we go.